Heads of state and government, honorable ministers, executive director of the UN Habitat, representatives of international financial institutions, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And I'm honored to join you this morning in this important dialogue on adequate housing, a subject that speaks not only to shelter, but dignity, security, opportunity, and human rights. Adequate housing is the foundation of families to thrive, for children to grow in safety, and for human dignity to be upheld. Yet, the lack of decent housing remains one of the greatest challenges of our time, especially in urban areas where too many families live in conditions of squalor and indignity or have no home at all. The global housing crisis is too vast for any one country to solve. That is why UN Habitat Assembly Resolution 27 on adequate housing for all is an imperative. It elevates housing as both a human right and a catalyst for sustainable urbanization and development. As we gather for the UN's 80th anniversary, we are reminded of the power of multilateralism. A fit-for-purpose United Nations must be impact-driven and responsive to today's realities. In this vision, UN Habitat is indispensable, linking global aspirations to local transformation. Excellencies, allow me to highlight four urgent priorities. Number one, we must fully implement Resolution 27, embedding housing in national development strategies and recognizing it as essential to SDG, climate resilience, and social equity. Second, we must mobilize scaled up, unpredictable financing through stronger support for UN Habitat, partnership with financial institutions, and innovative models that match the scale of the challenge we have in housing. And third, we must forge coalitions for action, uniting governments, cities, the private sector, and communities to make housing a reality, not just an aspiration. And finally, we must align with related UN initiatives, especially Resolution 22 on transforming informal settlements and the Building Climate Resilience with Urban Poor initiative, which Kenya and Brazil proudly co-lead. Excellencies, Kenya's affordable housing program is driven by the conviction that every citizen deserves the dignity of a decent home. Our ambition is to build 200,000 affordable houses each year, not just as shelter, but as engines of job creation, urban renewal, and equity. Today, nearly 170,000 units are under construction, as you have seen, creating 320,000 jobs, and this number will double to 650 before the end of the year. Very well ahead of our program. To achieve this ambition, we have removed barriers from building affordable housing. Land is the most single difficult asset to come by, and we have made public land available. We have also, we are cutting costs to make sure that whatever used to be the percentage contributed to by purchase of land is removed. We have instituted tax incentives to lower construction expenses and encourage private sector investment. These deliberate choices anchor affordability while ensuring developments are well planned, serviced, and integrated into urban transformation. We have also enacted enabling legislation, notably the Affordable Housing Act of 2024, which established the Affordable Housing Fund. Sat with President Mahama, he asked me, how are you funding? This is through the housing levy, matched by employers. We are mobilizing resources now, transforming informal settlements into vibrant, dignified communities. At the same time, we have expanded access to finance. The Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company provides concessional fixed-rate mortgages to thousands of low and middle income families, making ownership a reality for many who were once excluded. And the Kenya Refinance Mortgage Facility, we got the support of Africa Development Bank to boost it together, and also the World Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, these efforts in Kenya must be seen as within the bigger context that while progress is possible, the financing gap remains vast. Across Africa and beyond, the scale of need dwarfs available resources. Without adequate and predictable financing, adequate and affordable housing will remain out of reach for many. That is why this dialogue this morning matters. It is not just to share experience, but to rally political will and mobilize resources. I propose that today's gathering be remembered as the launch of a champions initiative for adequate housing, a platform for leadership, advocacy, financing, and accountability. Kenya, as the host of the UN Habitat, stands ready to work with each and every one of you on a joint roadmap with clear targets, milestones, and transparent reporting before the next assembly. We will align with Resolution 22 on informal settlements and the Building Climate Resilience Within Urban Poor initiative, ensuring commitments translate into real change for the most vulnerable. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our success will not be measured by the pledges we make, but by the communities we uplift, the roofs we raise, and the dignity we restore. Housing must not be a privilege for the few who can afford. It must become the lived reality of all human beings. I thank you for your attention.
Before that, let me express how impressed I am at the effort that our brothers and sisters in Kenya are making to provide affordable housing. I was very impressed when I watched the video. And I asked President Ruto, I said, but how are you funding this? And so he's giving me a few tips, which I hope that I can go back to Ghana with. Housing is a basic human need. And indeed, it is important if our people are to live in dignity. Unfortunately, because of other pressing budgetary needs, education, health, agriculture, and so on, often housing is relegated to the background. I think with the help of UN Habitat, Shelter Afrique, and all that, this is the time for us to reposition the issue of housing so that our people can get decent places to live. In Ghana, the biggest cost to every household is accommodation. Because of the shortage of housing, the landlords take a premium in terms of rent. And so people with salaries are called to make rent advances of 1 year and 2 years before they can get a place to lay their head. A housing deficit of 2.8 million homes. We've cut that down to about 1.8, but still there's a lot of pressure for people to own their own homes. Now there's a question about affordable housing and low-cost housing. We have done several affordable housing projects, but however we try, because of the high cost of building materials, a home comes typically at a cost of about $50,000. Now is $50,000 for a home affordable? Look at what the living wage is in different countries to be able to determine that. And so often you find that it is the rich, the middle class that snap up these houses, and more ordinary people are not able to afford them. So what is agitating our minds is how to bring the homes in at a lower cost. And like my brother said, land is one of the main issues. And so if government takes off the cost of land from the house, you reduce the cost of the house by a very significant percentage. And so that's one of the things that we have adopted, and I'm happy that he spoke about it. Aside from that, we are separating affordable housing from low-cost housing. Low-cost housing can be done with local materials and bring it in at a much lower cost, especially for the districts and the rural areas. While for the more standard housing, apartments, and so on and so forth. They are more suited to an urban environment. So I want to thank President Ruto for leading on this. He might add it to his hat as one of the next things he's championing. He already has a lot of things he's championing. But I can assure you that Ghana will be right beside you.
And we contend ourselves with having these stated as maxims or axioms in textual formulation existing in some fading parchment of a constitution in each of our countries. We have come to a point now where we all must appreciate that these rights mean absolutely nothing if they do not translate into tangible benefits for the ordinary people. They need decent housing. They live in overcrowded conditions of abject poverty and squalor. They look to that assemblage of persons that they have elected to lead their country, determine their fate, to provide answers to these pressing and trenchant problems that trouble them on a daily basis. We happen to be, for our respective countries, that eminent assemblage of persons given the task of leading. It therefore is our task, our obligation, to provide answers to these questions. Kenya is leading by example. We saw that they have begun to provide real answers to the challenge of housing in Kenya. They have committed themselves to building several hundreds of thousands of houses across the length and breadth of their republic. They speak to real problems affecting real people, everyday people, every day. Many of these people are economies of their countries. We know that if any employee has to spend more than 40% of their earnings, their salary, paying rent, then that employee is but a working destitute. And so we have to provide this housing within easy access of where employment opportunities are available. Anything short of that would amount to mere rhetoric or platitudes. Botswana, inspired by Kenya, is also now providing its own answer. We have inaugurated a program we call Bunno Affordable Housing, Bunno meaning shelter or residence or a home. We aim to build 100,000 houses within the next 3 years in Botswana. We do this because Botswana is a rapidly urbanizing country. Our rate of urbanization is in excess of the African average of 44% and the world average of 55%. Botswana's rate of urbanization is now sitting at 66.6%. We therefore must provide answers urgently, boldly, and decisively. Our people expect no less. And so I'm happy to join President Ruto President Mahama, and other presidents across the breadth and dimensions of the African continent, who will respond with speed and dispatch to this challenge of providing decent housing, decent shelter to our people. We have engaged with local banks. We have currently an advanced conversation with 3 financial institutions in Botswana. They have asked for a number of things as our contribution to the project. They ask for land to be availed. Government has committed fully to the provision of land. They have asked for other concessions in relation to the building materials, some of which they have to import, that government go easy on any import duties. The reason we also have to play our part as government is first to cement this partnership between government and the private sector, but also to ensure that we cap the price of each housing unit within ranges of easy affordability for our people. We've set a living wage that should make it somewhat easier for our people to finance, to afford, to have access to these housing units that we're building. In Botswana, I'm sure like in other places, especially in the villages, we have land boards which allocate a parcel of land to each citizen who applies. We've faced challenges in relation to this program because many of the places where the land would otherwise be availed are unserviced, have no access to decent water, potable water, sanitation, roads, and such infrastructure. Our conversation with the banks involves servicing the land in addition to developing these housing units that we envisage. And we've begun. The housing units are being delivered on an ongoing basis across the country. We've apportioned, because our country has 61 constituencies. We will have a minimum of 1,000 houses in each constituency so that we do not disproportionately allocate and distribute these resources. And so I'm humbled to be part of the discussion here today, encouraged and fortified in my own resolve, because Kenya is doing it. We are coming right along. Ghana is also in the process. And the huge housing deficit that Africa has, as UN Habitat has so accurately mapped it out for us over the years, we hope will soon become a thing of the past. And human rights will now move from the text, from word to deed, as we translate the maxims and precepts enshrined in constitutions into bold and courageous actions to deliver quality, affordable, decent housing.
Ladies and gentlemen, after so much work, and I really appreciate Joy and Alice to appreciate the work of the teams here, but also your availability for being here with us today. So it's a great honor to join you and to represent the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, at this occasion. Allow me to begin by expressing my deep appreciation to His Excellency President William Ruto for his leadership. His initiative in launching the global call to action for adequate housing reinforces the global momentum we are seeing and provides a rallying point for governments, partners, and communities to work together. Everybody already said, housing is not simply about shelter. So housing determines whether families can escape poverty, whether women and girls can live with dignity and safety, and whether cities can grow in ways that are inclusive, resilient, and low carbon. Adequate housing is a social infrastructure, and it underpins progress across all of the Sustainable Development Goals. This is why the situation we face today is so urgent. Nearly 3 billion people live in inadequate housing, including more than 1 billion in informal settlements and over 300 million experiencing homelessness. At the high-level dialogues convened this year at the resumed United Nations Habitat Assembly and jointly with the president of ECOSOC at the margin of the high-level political forum, one message came through strongly. Housing is no longer seen as a sectoral issue, but as a platform for poverty eradication, equality jobs, resilience, and peace. The housing crisis is a defining challenge of our time. For this reason, countries in all regions are increasingly placing housing at the center of the political agenda. We just heard from 3. The European Union, for example, nominated its first ever commissioner for housing and launched the development of an European affordable housing plan. In line with the Vision 2063, the African Union highlighted the importance of housing for the economic transformation of the continent in the outcome of the first African Forum held in Addis in 2024. We also heard that financing remains a critical challenge. We heard the example of Kenya, of the housing levy. Public resources are absent, but powerful tools are not yet fully harnessed. Land-based finance, cooperative housing funds, community saving schemes could unlock vast potential for sustainable investment. Equally important, member states underscore the need to support diverse production models, from large-scale national programs to community-led and self-built solutions, and to place security of tenure at the heart of housing efforts. The good news is that for the first time, the international community has a global platform to confront this crisis together. Through the resolutions of the Second United Nations Habitat Assembly in 2023, 190 countries created the open-ended Intergovernmental Expert Working Group on Adequate Housing for All. We have the honor to have the co-chairs here, Minister Tani, France, Kenya are the co-chairs of the open-ended working group on adequate housing for all. With the facilitation of UN Habitat, this mechanism enables governments to share practices, develop guidelines, align financing with real needs, and transform fragmented initiatives into coordinated action at global, national, and local levels. We also have before us a clear roadmap. From the launch of the call to action today, through COP30 in Brazil, the second World Social Summit, the World Urban Forum in 2026, the high-level political forum, and midterm review of the new urban agenda. Each milestone is an opportunity to advance housing as a foundation for a renewed social contract. The call to action reinforces this trajectory and gives a unifying framework. It urges countries to integrate housing into climate and social protection policies, to strengthen land tenure systems, to transform informal settlements, and mobilize innovative financing. If we continue with business as usual and current trends continue, by 2030, 3 billion people could be living in inadequate housing. This is precisely the urgency that UN Habitat Strategic Plan for 2026-29 is designed to help countries address. It supports governments to place housing, land, basic services, and the transformation of informal settlements at the center of their national strategies. Guided by principles of inclusion, resilience, and equity, the strategic plan calls for people-centered housing systems, diverse in production, secure in tenure, and integrated with services and livelihoods. With this shared framework and the global momentum now building, we can shift from fragmented initiatives to coordinated systems change. UN Habitat remains as ever committed to supporting the implementation of the call to action, building on its long track record of delivery of affordable and adequate housing, and I thank you.